On this video, I'm going to take you through my editing workflow and show you the steps I take to create a high quality travel vlog. I started making films at the age of 11, and in those days it really was working with film, and the editing process involved taking 8mm wide strips of film, slicing it up, grinding the edges and sticking them together with special film cement. Then came videotape, but editing a video signal from tape required some very complicated and expensive equipment to synchronize all the video signals together. These days I can do far more on my iPhone than I could do with a whole room full of very expensive equipment, and in much higher quality. Nowadays, with digital video, editing can be very low cost, but it still requires some good technique and a lot of effort to make your finished film stand out above the rest. In my work, I often get to film something and then edit it, and as an editor, it really helps to know what's been shot already. But also, when filming, it puts me in more control to make sure that I get the shots that I need with a view to how I'm going to edit it together later. Here I'm setting up the camera to get a shot of us walking into the scene. So even with something like one of my travel vlogs, I'm often thinking about the finished edit long before I've even set off travelling. When it comes to filming, I'm generally thinking about building a sequence that tells a story and making sure that I get all the shots that I need to help me build that meaningful sequence back in the edit. So what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at a typical sequence. I'll probably start with an establishing shot, a big wide shot that shows where we are. Then I'll be moving in a bit closer to identify the subjects and what they're doing. Then I'll be going in even closer in more detail, cutting backwards and forwards, revealing what's happening and moving the story along. Here is an example. I start with a wide shot showing us opening presents on Christmas Day. I cut into Chris opening a present and revealing a strange object.
What is that?
Then onto a close-up showing what the object is for. In those 3 shots, the viewer gets to understand that Chris is opening his Christmas presents, getting puzzled by the object, but revealing it's for holding his glasses. To a large extent, the whole film is made up of a sequence of sequences, telling the story of our whole trip without much superfluous footage to bore the viewer. Once back at the edit suite, my first job is to write protect the card for safety and then copy the footage onto my computer. Once ingested, I'll do a bit of organisation, putting things in folders and naming them. That may take a few minutes, but it'll save a lot of time in the long run. Having looked through the footage, I'll start making some notes on the running order. That may not always be in chronological order, although with something like a travel vlog, it does help to avoid continuity issues. I'll start laying shots down on the timeline, looking for the best take or the best part of a take, and here I'll often work backwards, as the best take is often, but not always, the last one that we shot. This is the first rough cut and starts to give me a feel for the overall film. Are some sections too long or too short? How's the pacing and the overall story arc? Next, I'll start to trim and finesse those clips down to get a nice flow going. Always remembering that in most cases, less is more. I'll start removing duplicate or similar shots, and if I've got a sequence of say 6 shots, but really I can tell that story in 3, I'll start looking at if or which ones to remove. If we've already started with our best shots on the timeline, we're now down to choosing the best of the best. And if every shot looks and sounds great and moves the story along, we should end up with a really watchable film by the end of it. Sometimes one of the hardest things to do is remove one of your favourite shots because it just doesn't work in the overall sequence. Now I'll be looking at the running time of the vlog and the overall content. At this stage I might be looking at removing entire sections if they're not really adding anything to the overall film. In this project I removed an entire segment showing the nativity scene in the town hall because it was almost identical to the same scene I shot for last year's Christmas vlog. Once I have the basic storyline down, I'll start thinking about music if I haven't already chosen some. Adding in the music may require changing some of the elements of the edit, making certain sequences shorter or longer to make a certain part of the action happen at a dramatic part of the music. And in some cases, I may even edit the music to fit the video better. I'll also be thinking about the voiceover, although I've probably been thinking about the things I want to say while we were filming. I'll jot down a rough script on my phone. I'll play back the edit and read through the voiceover script, tweaking it to fit. Then I'll record the voiceover. And we're off out to see in the new year at Boomerang. There's trouble in the air. There's trouble in the air. Then I find the best take. There's trouble in the air. Slice it up and move it to the correct point on the timeline. There's trouble in the air. Everything starts to come together now, and I'll do the first sound mix just to get everything to a good level. And if everything is working well, I'll do a more polished sound mix with good quality studio headphones, dipping the background sound and music under the voiceover, mixing the music tracks together, mixing the camera background sound together so there are smooth transitions between each cut, cutting out spurious noises and dialogue, and after several passes I should get the overall balance of Atmos sound, talking to camera, voiceover and music all balanced up nicely. A well-mixed soundtrack will really take your video to the next level. This can be a lot more complicated than it appears though, as levels can change when the final film is rendered out, and again once it's uploaded. It will sound very different on headphones, on PC monitor speakers, an iPhone or on a TV, so I will listen and test it all the way through on each of them. Also, it's important to remember that hearing changes with age. A voice can be perfectly audible to a teenager, yet be completely lost under the loud background music to an older viewer, and this should be taken into consideration when mixing the final sound. With video and audio now locked down, I'll start adding the captions and titles. Do some basic colour correction. Tweak any shots that are too dark or too bright. Straighten any off-level shots and do any reframing or stabilisation, or just fix any shots that are bugging me. Finally, I'll render off a high quality 4K video file to upload to YouTube, often overnight. YouTube has spent a lot of money to develop its compression software, so giving it a very high quality source file will allow it to generate a very high quality playout file. As I mentioned, I'll then review the video on all my different devices, deciding if there are any showstoppers that need tweaking and re-uploading. You have to know when to say, that's good enough, so when I'm generally happy with it, I'll start to look at making the thumbnail and entering the details into YouTube. The title, the description, the tags, the end screens, etc. A final check to make sure YouTube hasn't decided to demonetize it or come up with any unexpected copyright claims, and then I'll start thinking about when is the best time to release this video out to the world. I hope you've enjoyed watching my workflow process on editing videos. You may feel it's a bit more extreme than is required for some of your own videos, but for me it sets a standard that I know many of my paying clients would expect from me, and I know it's going to produce a high quality video that hopefully many of my viewers are going to enjoy watching. If you found some useful tips in this, great, and do let me know in the comments below. Of course, things don't always go according to plan.
Right, well that... Shut up. Well that's about it from Torremolinos. We've had a great Christmas and New Year. Don't forget to subscribe and catch up with us again soon.
And now you've seen the process that I follow, do think about watching a few of my vlogs and subscribing for more of my content.